the technology and the fun stuff that e-commerce has to offer, you will realize that a lot of it is built on the back of core business concepts. Because as we've mentioned before, that too often do we find that when persons come to us for e-commerce services or consultations, technology is the least of their problems, to be honest. Of course, affording the tech is also another. But I will tell you that 9 times out of 10, persons fail at e-commerce because they were not properly structured from a business perspective to tackle it. And when I say structure, I mean simple things as having a business registered, having the necessary bank accounts in place, having the necessary operational checkpoints and processes in place to ensure that you are doing business in a way that is viable for longevity. A lot of times persons come to us to start e-commerce businesses because they want to take a shorter route to success, and of course for budgetary reasons. But I will say that a lot of times persons expect can I take a shortcut by implementing e-commerce strategies, and that culture of taking a shortcut carries over into other areas of their business where they just feel like, build a website, promote some products, and we're in business, we're good to go. It's a lot more than that. And that is why we take an e-commerce ecosystem approach towards providing the training content, because it's not only about just setting up systems and selling products online, but how is it that you set up a business that is able to, one, be launchable and thrive within its local environment, and then become exportable to other nearby countries and the world at large, And the reality is that to be successful at anything in life, really, you have to be very deliberate about it, especially at e-commerce. You have to be very purposeful about what you're doing, how you're doing it. And at the end of the day, guys, it's a formula that has to be created, rinsed and repeated by every company who goes into the space. And, just like any other business development activity, you have to, start small and build it out as you find more and more success. So last week, we touched on business modeling and revenue modeling, pricing, and everything that has to do with creating and structuring a business. We started with that so that we can set the framework for what is to come hereafter, which is really now how we build out that infrastructure from a technical perspective. And today,
hi, good morning. I just had a question. I raised my hand, but I'm not sure if it is you would have noticed that.
Sure.
Is it for me? So we at the Chamber in Trinidad and Tobago, we had a similar concern with that Tamara had. And I think this is going to be particularly important with regards to who the businesses are that are coming for training when it is we include them into the sessions. So when it is we had the first session with Philip, he did indicate that we should use varying types of businesses, those who are a little further along and those type of things. So we may have businesses who have pretty good business structures and models and stuff like that or whatever, but they really just want to focus on the e-commerce part of things. So I just wanted to find out how this may be tailored to who our audience may be.
All
because
right.
a lot of persons may not be startups or now started, but they just really want to focus on developing their e-commerce part to their already structured business running model that they have going for a bit. So would this be tailored based on the audience, based on the businesses that we have that would be added, or this is just what it would be?
All right, so that's a very good question. And that is exactly the same experience that I have and Gilbert has when we're delivering trainings or doing group exercises of this nature. Different companies are at different starting points and have different priorities and have different resources. That is why we use the case study as a way to connect with all different types of companies. Now, at the end of the day, the training content is the content, and some companies will find some areas more relevant to them than others. But what I will say is that at the end of the day, whether the business is small or large, the same considerations have to be made. And I'm gonna give a simple example. Up to very recently, before starting this program, I was requested to train a company here in Jamaica, Grace, which is one of Jamaica's oldest companies in manufacturing and distribution. I'm sure a number of countries across the Caribbean do consume Grace products. It's one of those companies that have been around for more than 100 years, you know. And you think that, you know, a 100-year-old company has every I and every I dotted and every T crossed already. But I had the pleasure of meeting with their team of brand managers who manage all the different brands. And these brands are coming from global. A lot of these brands are global brands that they distribute within the region, as well as they have their own brands that they manufacture for. And the reason why we have to start from the strategy and the modeling of the product or business is because we cannot assume that because somebody is coming from a more advanced company, that they understand all of the considerations that need to be made when going into e-commerce. Because of that, we have to educate the entire lot on the core concepts and then help them to scale their strategy based on these concepts. And, you know, as you rightfully said, persons will come at different stages in their business. And it is our responsibility to identify those stages and at least have to close the gaps where they exist. So both us and the businesses themselves need to understand where the gaps are based on the knowledge that is being transferred, so that we can help them to close those gaps. Now that's the long and short of it at the end of the day. As I mentioned in our initial call, initial meeting, what I have found is that because e-commerce is new, it is new to everybody. It is new to the startup person. It is new to the 100-year-old company. It is new to the managers who have doctorates and professorships, right, to their names. It is just new to everybody. And how it is adapted into a business is not solely based on the technological adoption, but is based to suit the business model. A lot of companies out there who have successful businesses are unsure about how to implement e-commerce in their business in a way that is measurable and gives them the return on investment that they need to make for them to make a confident step in that direction. And this I have seen with many Jamaican companies that I've consulted with here, again, from the smallest to the oldest. And I've worked with quite a range across many industries in this space. And the fact is that this thing is new. And because of its newness to the Caribbean region, we are all in a similar position where adoption is concerned. And again, I will say that yes, there are some that are more advanced, especially if they already have e-commerce websites, already have e-commerce sales, and need to do better at it. But I will say that going through the content will also expand their thinking to adapt new revenue models or try different things that they would not have ordinarily tried. So the content will be delivered to all. What we hope to happen is that by using the Kim's Beauty case study and building out the different areas of Kim's Beauty based on the content that we're bringing across, it will be relatable to all and be transferable to all participants in the Accelerator program. Now, When we get into the training of participants, we will be having regular review meetings with our BSOs to understand where are the challenges that exist currently in us connecting the content, making it relevant, and just getting through the workbook as we intend to, right? Or getting through the program milestones as we intend to. And through that exercise, we will together understand whatever challenges may be faced, and we will all work together to provide solutions to these challenges. I want us to approach the program with an open mind, knowing that this has never been done before by any entity in this particular way, knowing that you have at your fingertips arguably the best available persons within the region who are doing this every single day to support the process and provide the necessary guidance. And that, through our collaboration, we will find ways to get it right and to fix the issues as they come up. So I just wanna close my introduction, or rather to close my thought on that element of the program on that note. As I said, come with an open mind. Nothing is set in stone at this point in time. Nothing is perfect. It's a work in progress. We have 2 cohorts over which we expect to deliver successful programs. Ideally, I would expect that the second cohort will be even stronger from a presentation, from a collaboration, from a content, from a connectivity perspective, but we still aim to get it as right as possible from the first go, right? So feedbacks are welcome. So, when you guys have these feedbacks, please don't be shy about it. We welcome it. We are open. We're not perfect, so we're open to criticisms and constructive criticism, of course. And if you guys have ideas on how we can improve or make the content more relevant or just make this a better experience for all, we are open to that. As was mentioned, we're spending at least 3 hours per week in these sessions together. We want to make it as impactful for you, for the participants, and also for us, the program managers, our leaders delivering the program, right? So we look forward to those levels of engagement, and please let it last sessions were a little bit dormant. I might think it is that because the content from the first sessions of business model and support will be more familiar to you guys. You may have found it much of the content may not be very new to you. But from this session going forward, guys, we want as much input, feedback, questions as best as possible. It helps us to know, if the content is connecting. Also helps us to know if you guys are engaged. Helps us to know, where the gaps are as well in our own delivery and in your understanding of the information that's being passed on to you. All right, so we welcome as much participation as possible. Feel free at any point in time to unmute your mic. We don't have a moderator of any sort really to be checking. I mean, Gilbert is on the call, so I'm sure we'll keep an eye out, but just feel free to unmute your mic and stop me at any point in time. If you need further clarification, or if you have a point that you want to make, if you want to have an input, you don't know every single thing, guys, right? And we have mentioned as well that one of the unique things about this program is the disjointed nature of the Caribbean. Yes, we're one Caribbean, but we're all unique and have our own set of circumstances, so we want to hear what is unique about your country, what is unique about the challenge that you face, because it's not a one fix for all. It cannot be, and we know it isn't, right? So let's get into it. Let's make this a very engaging session today. I will be doing majority of the training because these are my 2 modules coming up today. I'll be doing module 3 and module 4. Module 3 talks about e-commerce and payment systems. Module 4 focuses on lead generation with digital marketing, right? So let's jump into it. I think I see a session in the chat, or just good morning. Okay, good morning to all. All right, so we have 30 persons on the call now. We have 31. Let's kick off. All right, so as I said, this session, module 3, focus on e-commerce and payment systems. By and large, the topics will include domains, hosting, security, content systems, online selling models, structuring to sell online like you do offline, e-commerce and payment systems, fulfillment and delivery zoning, and what it takes to keep your website running consistently, right? Now, similar to when we kicked off last week, we talked about setting up your business and what it takes to really get online in a structured way. Just give me 1 second, guys. All right, sorry about that. Yes, what it takes to get online in a structured ways, structured way. Now, when we are setting up a business online, or we are bringing or we're developing an online sales channel, one of the key things here is how you structure yourself from a domain perspective. Now, what's the domain? Domain is that URL that sits on the internet that registers that your website or your set of digital assets sit here. Domain is like land in the website development space, and no two persons can have the same title for any land. It's the same way how no two persons can have access to the same domain. And these days, domains look a little bit different from how they would in the past when everything was a .com. These days, I see persons in Jamaica do .jm.com. I've seen it as well in other Caribbean countries where they use their country name as part of the website structure. But one of the things I firmly believe in creating a website domain is that you want to find a domain that is relatable to your business, is simple, not too long and easy to spell, and kind of just says it. Because one of the things about your domain is that when you are marketing an e-commerce business or an online sales channel, your domain becomes your identity. Is what persons recognize you for. I'll give you an example. My business that I'm moving from was named Mobile Edge Solutions. And I created a domain called getmobileedge.com because Mobile Edge Solutions was too long. And I think there was another Mobile Edge in another business category that I did not want to get mixed up with. When I created Get Mobile Edge as my domain name, persons, the public at large, started to refer to the business as Get Mobile Edge, as opposed to Mobile Edge Solutions. And this is how powerful your domain can be when you use it as a core part of your marketing strategy. It becomes a part of your identity. It is important for it to be easy to be found. So for instance, there are certain things that I recommend that you don't do when you're creating a domain. I recommend that you don't put things like letters in there if you don't have to, unless, let's say, for instance, your business name, not letters, numbers, unless your business name has numbers. So for example, there's this brand in Jamaica called 876 Water. Now, there's no way that you can have the website not having numbers in here when the number is a part of the business name. But if it is that, let's say, for instance, it was, let's use the example of Kim's Beauty. Or not, probably Kim's Beauty is a bad example, but let's say, let's use an example of a website that has the word, somebody who may choose to use a domain that has the number 4 in it. When you are on TV, on radio, in the public at large, promoting your business, and you say, visit us at Donate For You, for argument's sake and use the number 4. Some people will spell it F-O-R and confuse it as far. Some people will spell it F-O-U-R when it is supposed to be a number instead. So these things sometimes complicate the process of finding you and lessens your marketability as a business. So we try to encourage persons to keep your domain names as simple as you can and as relevant as you can to your business. Something that persons have been doing recently is adding call to action words to their domain names to help to make it more marketable. Like for instance, when I said get mobile edge, the get is an action word. And sometimes that works. I've seen persons use join as a part of a call to action again for persons to join whatever their platform, their company, their service. And these are things that you can play around with as well, right? And we encourage as much creativity as possible in coining your domain name, but we want to echo the sentiment of keeping things simple, especially in countries where literacy rate is not the greatest. You want to keep it simple because persons will misspell. And if I'm here searching them, I probably have maximum 2 to 3 tries at a domain name. If I don't get like 2 to 3 tries, I'm moving on. I'm saying, oh, they don't have a website. This thing is not working. Maybe it's not launched as yet. These are things that are going to be going through my mind, So keep in mind that you have to be very purposeful about how you do your domain names, right? Now, another thing to keep in mind is the type of domain name that you choose, whether it is .com or a .shop or a .net. There are many different types of variations of domain name these days. Simply because, just like with land, once you've exhausted all the .coms, then for new business being registered, it's going to be difficult for them to find domain names for their business. So persons have now started to offer things like the .net, .co, .shops, .apps, .club, .online, there are many .services, there are different variations that you can play around with. What I will say to persons is that if you can get the .com, that is best for you because people automatically assume .com when they hear a domain name. I try not to use .co unnecessarily because it's easy to hear .co but think .com. But most times persons who are companies may use .co for different reasons. But again, I try to encourage persons to try to get as simple as possible, something that is easy to remember. I have used that app in the past for technology solutions. And that has worked for us. But again, keep in mind the purpose of what you're doing and how you want persons to connect with you. It's very important. As when you go on TV and radio, you have 10 seconds to get that website URL out there. Persons remembering it is very important. All right, next thing now is hosting. What exactly is hosting? When we set up websites or digital assets for companies, and you type in kimsbeauty.com and you see beautiful pictures of products and styles and texts and all these things, you're seeing this because all of this information is hosted somewhere. It is placed, stored somewhere for you to see this information when you bring up that domain. And this is only possible because of host services that are provided for website owners to connect to so that their content can show when persons bring up their URL. Gone are the days when persons are using servers in a server room to provide hosting for website services. It's all cloud-based now. And anybody who is still in that server room type of setup needs to get away from it because you're exposed to a lot of possibilities for downtime, poor maintenance, and very archaic way of operating. Right? It's also much cheaper to get online with hosting services. Hosting services these days, I think you can get for as little as probably $3 to $5 per month, if my memory serves me correct, depending on the host provider for your first year. But generally, I remember hovering around about $7, $8 for basic platforms, right? At the end of the day, where hosting is concerned, hosting is not only there to allow your information to be displayed online, but also impacts things like the speed of your website, the security of your website as well. And how is all this impact? I'm going to explain that with these examples. So these are the three most common forms of hosting for website services or app services. Shared server hosting is where you go to, for instance, a bluehost.com or a rackspace.com, and you say, hey guys, I have a very basic website that I need to display online, and I just want somewhere to put it so that it can show up, right? And they will give you a very cheap hosting package, very competitively priced. And they're gonna tell you that you're gonna get X amount of RAM, X amount of bandwidth, X amount of storage space. And what they're not telling you is that all of these resources that you have access to are shared resources. So you don't have access to 100% of that capacity, because that capacity is being used by all the other websites that are sitting on that particular domain. Now, if one particular website for some reason is using up a lot of resources, it automatically reduces the amount of resources that other websites have access to on that same server, right? So it's very important to understand the compromises that are being made when setting up websites, because some websites will become high traffic websites, and you want to ensure that you're optimized to handle that traffic. I'm sure you would have heard many instances of websites being crashed when persons flock to them. Recently, it was announced in Jamaica that Burna Boy would be here in December. And I think on the last day of the first week of ticket sales, the website crashed. And this is because the website was not resourced properly to handle the influx of traffic that it should be able to handle. And oftentimes, when a website crash because of traffic, it's a good thing for your business. It means that you're getting more traffic or more results than you anticipated. So it's now time to upgrade. So a crash is not necessarily a bad thing all the time. It's sometimes a good indicator about success, because it oftentimes only crashes when resources are overwhelmed, and that overwhelm generally comes from an influx of traffic or interest in whatever it is that you are selling on, right? So shared servers tend to come with that type of thing. Also, because of shared resources, some of the times, again, websites are competing for resources. Sometimes you may have disconnection errors as well when work with different host providers. And different host providers have different metrics that they use to manage, how many websites should sit on a server, how the resources are competed for. And some are better than others. A good starting point is bluehost.com. A more premium version of that, I would say, is Rackspace, which I prefer and use, because I don't get any server errors. I just have a very error-free experience working with Rackspace as opposed to Bluehost. But again, the accelerators who come into the program will start with what they can afford, and oftentimes the cheaper option is the more attractive option for starting up until you need more, right? So that's shared server hosting. One last thing as well about shared server hosting is that on a shared server, you are more susceptible to attacks and breaches of your website by unscrupulous persons. Why? This is because, think about it like COVID. If you have 10 persons with COVID in one room, it is quite likely that anybody else in the same room will contract that virus simply because of the exposure and the proximity to each other. It's the same concept with shared server hosting. Because you're on the same server, if one website is breached, then it is possible that other websites can also be affected by that breach. And because of that, sometimes if you find that your website is breached and your host provider finds out, they will tell you to rectify the issue within a certain amount of time, or else risk being kicked off the server, right? So this is very important to note. And I will tell you that there are certain types of companies that where their risk profiles do not permit them to put their websites on shared server. Example of this would be like financial service providers. Once you're a financial service provider of a certain stature, then you want to ensure that at a minimum, you're on a virtual private server. Let's go to that one. Virtual private server is like you have a house, right? But you know, you have each room, and each room has a door for itself. And you know, if again 10 people are in one room with COVID and they never ever leave that room, they stay in that room and don't come out. If I'm in another room, I should never catch it. It's the same concept as a private server. You have your own resources on the server that are dedicated to you. And you enjoy the benefits of having a little bit more seclusion, or being a little bit more exclusive than being on a shared server. What this means is that you're able to allocate websites, take advantage of website speed, take advantage of better security, and take advantage of everything that comes with, you know, kind of being a little off to yourself, you know. However, the ultimate server setup would be to have a dedicated server where it is you alone on that server. What's the main difference between a dedicated server and a virtual private server? Think about it, the dedicated server as your entire house, right? If you're in a house and the house is on fire, right? Then it is possible that all rooms are at risk of being burned. So if you're on a virtual private server where everybody is in their own room, if the room next door is on fire, then you are still vulnerable based on the proximity and the fact that you're in the same house. In a dedicated server, if the houses are separate, you have your own server, so whatever is happening on that server is only happening on that server. What is happening on the server next door has nothing to do with you. So again, use the example of the house. You have houses on a street in their own yard and one house is on fire. It is highly unlikely that it will impact other houses unless for some reason there was some great reason why it spread, right? So these are the benefits of having different types of server hosting engagements, and persons will choose their preferred setup based on budget, based on the resource needs, and based on their security concerns, right? Let's talk about security as well, because in the land of e-commerce, security is an extremely major concern up there with payments. Now, unfortunately, because of the nature of the anonymity of being a website user or being an online user, persons feel more comfortable committing unscrupulous acts or behaving in ways that are not fitting to normal societal rules, you know. And you find that internet fraud and scamming and phishing and all these different concepts of cyber attacking is far more prevalent, you know, in this space, because persons can oftentimes do it and get away anonymously, right? So these are some things to look out for from a security perspective. This is not an extensive list, and Gilbert has an entire module on cybersecurity. So this is just touching on it from a website perspective, but these are things that you need to consider from a security perspective just off the bat when setting up a website, you know. So it starts with the server firewalls, as you'd have heard me mention earlier, that, you know, your hosting setup does impact your security. So what are the security protocols on your server, right? Are there firewalls? Are there things that you know, look for malware attempts and try to clamp down on them, you know, or hack attempts and clamp down on them? What are these things that are on your server that help to enable? So when persons are looking for your host provider, these are questions that they need to ask. And they have things like security, SSL security certificates, which is that lock screen, that lock sign that you see at the top left corner of your browser to indicate that a website is secure. And what it really means is that website is communicating with other websites in a secure manner, right? So it's not easy to use communication to breach the website. And then have website page security protocols where there are codes and different levels of enhancements that are turned on the website page to further prevent hackers or unscrupulous persons from entering the website from the page level, right? And you have things like website login protection to identify when one person is trying to log in multiple times with different usernames, different emails, different passwords, and lock them out of the system for a period of time before they can try again, which frustrates the hacker who is there entering information over, because oftentimes hacking is a guessing. You're guessing a combination of credentials based on, you know, person's behavior or what persons normally do. So for instance, you know, persons doing things like using their first name as their password is a big risk, because these are the things that hackers are looking for, right? But we're going to talk about the user protocols. But things like spam protection as well is very important to prevent spammers from getting into your mailing list, or, you know, getting in through your different sign-up channels. So for example, if you have a mailing list system that you use to collect subscribers who are interested in getting newsletters from you, who are interested in opting into deals, you don't want bots and persons who are not real to end up in that list. Why? Because these resources cost you. If you go to MailChimp or Constant Contact or any of these email marketing service providers, these guys are charging you by the thousand for emails, right? So based on the number of emails by the thousand. So if you have 2,000 emails in your mail list, you have one price. If you have 3,000, you have a different price. So you don't want your mail list to be filled up with persons who are not real, and then end up being charged a lot of money for sending information to people who are not real. So you want to keep those persons out of your mail list by using things like spam protection. You don't want fake users on your website as well, because it's these very same fake users that may eventually leverage to become to use for hacking purposes, right? And then there's general personal security around how you use your platform. So for example, as I mentioned earlier, not using your first name as a password, you know, things like setting strong password, enforcing strong passwords on your website. So for example, if somebody was put in words, then it's weak. We're not allowing that. Maybe they put in words and a number. All right, that's medium, but we're still not allowing that. It needs to be maybe words, numbers, and characters before it becomes a passable password, you know, or acceptable password. So these are things to consider from a security perspective when setting up e-commerce websites. And before I move on from security, I want to say to you guys that, listen, e-commerce websites come under the most attacks because of the ability to steal credit card data. Normally, persons would hack other types of websites for information purposes, but because with e-commerce, financial data is being passed, it is even more valuable to when persons hack e-commerce websites. And because of this, I have personally seen a significant difference in the number of hack attempts on websites that we have built, or e-commerce websites that we have built, as opposed to regular information-based websites. I will go a step further to say that within the e-commerce space, there are even more hacks on donation type of e-commerce websites than even a regular shopping cart system, right? So these are things to be mindful of, and this is why it's important to understand security and the role it plays in getting online. Content. Yes, go ahead.
Peter, 1 second before just touch on security. Leo asked a question. Leo, I will be touching on security in depth in the next session. So I'll be providing you with tools and security solutions. One of the reasons why e-commerce websites are so easy to hack is because They're primarily being set up and run by small businesses that don't have the resources to fully protect them. So yes, I would be providing you with a set of tools and solutions to help you guys through that process.
Thanks. Great. All right. So thanks for that input, Gilbert. From a content management perspective, now, what is content management? What are content management systems? Content management systems are the platforms on which majority of the world's websites are built these days. There are some persons who may choose to build websites from scratch with custom code, which is a very extensive and elaborate way of going about website development. It is also the most expensive and takes the longest to get done. So you find that most persons are gravitating towards content management systems for building their websites. So what is this exactly? Content management system is like a base tool that they use that comes with the database already structured, user architecture already structured, security already structured. And with these content management systems, you can add on different tools and resources to them. And what exactly, how does this work? You know, an example of these content management systems are platforms like Joomla, Drupal, Magento, Wix, WordPress. And there are probably 100 of them out there by now. There are many, many, many. And a lot of persons are coming up with different content management systems by the year, you know. But these are some of the more popular ones. And, you know, they are all of different calibers and at different ease of use. Now, I'm going to zone in on the two bottom ones. For example, Wix. Wix is a content management system that allows anybody to build a website. When I say anybody, I mean the person who is non-technical, the person who is technical, the person who considers themselves to be afraid of technology or not techie. You know, it's literally a drag and drop website builder. So when you see a website with pictures and text, it's literally just dragging a picture element into a space, then uploading the picture to show in that space. Dragging a text-based element into a space and showing, and similar to even how you think about building out a PowerPoint presentation. It's a very similar example. You know, you have different resources that you can use to populate the pages, and you just drag it, drop it in the space, and it shows once it is saved and published, right? That's an example of Wix. And you know, Wix is good for the solo entrepreneur, the person who has no budget, who is starting up on their own and just needs to get it done today. They don't need it perfect, they just need something to start with, to tell the person that, hey, we're here and we're open for business. But it does come with its limitations. Once you want to start doing more, then you have to start tapping into paid packages. I think Wix allows you to start for free, if my memory serves me correct. And then you can start tapping into paid packages to access more features, more content, which again works for some persons. My favorite platform is WordPress. Why? Because WordPress allows you to do a little bit of Wix, but is more technical and allows you to get a lot more out of your website. What do I mean by this? With WordPress, WordPress is a content management system that started out as a blog. So persons just write blogging articles, post it on WordPress, put in your pictures, put in your videos, and persons could read your blog and, you know, consume it. You could organize your blog in different categories and so forth. But the beauty about WordPress is that WordPress is open source. It's like the Android of phones, where no one person owns it. So no person can price it or say that to do more, you have to pay more, right? Also, WordPress does come with drag and drop page builders where somebody can, you know, put a picture element into the space, upload a picture and so forth, and interact with the content in a fairly easy way. but it tends to be a little bit more technical because of what it offers. Beautiful. The most impressive thing I find about WordPress is that you're able to start with an MVP type of approach like Wix, where you're starting with the basics, something that you need today to just get online. But it has absolutely no ceiling as to where you can go with it, right? I hear somebody mentioning here as well. All right, guys, so I like this. You know, you're in the chat and you're talking about different things. So I see you mentioning here Shopify as another viable solution. Shopify is another similar type of content management platform that you can use to build a website. The main difference with Shopify and everybody else that Shopify is geared 100% towards selling online, you know? So it's very much built into your storefront type of approach where you have a shopping cart solution and so forth, you know? A lot of Caribbean businesses use Shopify and it works a great deal to an extent. It is similar to Wix from an ease of starting up perspective. It does take a little bit of understanding, and the reality is that once you start selling online, I realize that a lot of persons, it's because selling online is a little bit more technical as opposed to just writing a blog, you know, writing some content and posting it. Selling online, you're talking about the pricing, you're talking about logistics, how do you set up your system to ensure that when somebody is shipping to North America, it is charging one shipping rate versus when it's shipping within your local country, it charges a different rate. These are things that tend to become mind-boggling for some persons, you know, the persons who are afraid of the techie part of things. So you find that.
Can I jump in real quick? This is Tamara. I just wanted to add to something. Yeah.
Sure.
So from a Wix standpoint, I want to kind of take it back to Wix and maybe talk a little bit about Shopify. Because yes, while Wix has a free version, for a solopreneur, Wix is also really good because it comes with an app process, right? If you start moving into the paid packages, it really allows for a lot of digital marketing elements all in one, along with the website elements. It is also a 1 to 10 step basis that anybody could use, and the costs are really not that much, right? So for solopreneurs, it's a great all-in-one solution when you move to the paid piece. Shopify, also a great solution. As you said, it's really heavily used for product-based businesses, but it works really well for service-based businesses as well too. A lot of people have started using them for service-based businesses. The great thing about these are they come with that mobile usability, and in the Caribbean, we know that 90% of the people are using mobile, right? I think you mentioned that in one of your presentations. So
Right,
I just kind of wanted to add that in there because I have a client right now who is not savvy and moving through Wix in a way that makes sense and being able to have an app that they can download. It's a Wix app, but it's now this new addition to their process that they can have people book, reach out to them. So it becomes really robust for somebody who isn't as savvy, and they get to use that. So I think those solutions are there's a lot more depth to them. And so I just wanted to kind of add that to the conversation.
Thank you for adding that. And I love that input. I really love that input because, you know, you hit the nail on the head for that 1 to 10 step process. Because at the end of the day, guys, reality is that when we build a website, we don't build a website because we want to build a website. We build a website because we want to market products and sell them. And turning on your marketing automation features, your CRM features, everything that makes a business work are packaged into these upgrades that you can get with the Shopify or Wix. And those things are very important, especially when it comes as a turnkey solution, right? That you don't have to go somewhere and try to put the pieces together. With WordPress, you have to put those pieces together, but you have the flexibility of putting them together how you choose to put them together. But for a layman, for the starter person who has very limited budget, who is willing to read, watch some YouTube videos and do it themselves, Shopify and Wix are great solutions. But I see again in the chat where somebody mentioned that, where is it? It spoke about the challenge with payments. Here it is.
Yeah, that's Leo again. Yes.
Okay, great. Companies in the Caribbean have challenged with payment gateways with Shopify, and this is why, guys. This is why, as much as Wix and Shopify are great products, they serve a particular niche. in the market of the do-it-yourselfers and persons who just want to get up and in a very quick space of time. There are limitations to how adaptable they are in the region. And this is why, for me, WordPress is the #1 platform to use in the Caribbean. WordPress is the only content management platform where plugins, and we'll call plugins are same thing as apps. Apps are built to connect WordPress websites to every single available payment option in the Caribbean and globally. I will tell you that whenever payment service providers are building apps to collect payments on websites, WordPress is the first app that they build. Similar to how, there are a number of apps that target iOS first for strategic reasons, but generally in the Caribbean, when persons are launching apps, the first app they build is an Android app because that's what most persons have, right? It's the same thing for WordPress. In Jamaica, you have 5 banks out of 7 commercial banks who are enabling payment infrastructure. And every single one of them have an app out the box that connects with WordPress in a seamless and easy way, as opposed to having to go and build the integration from scratch, which again is very complicated, requires far more testing with companies like First Atlantic. And it's going to take a lot longer to build. So it's more expensive, takes longer, and it's very complicated, right? So because of this, guys, it is very important to guide your customer, your accelerators, your companies, your clients on how to choose platforms based on where they see themselves going within the next couple of years. Now, you can choose to take the route of, all right, let's build it on Wix today because that's what we can start and when we can afford to migrate to WordPress. But if you can afford to start on WordPress and then just upgrade, nobody really wants to change platforms when it's time to do more. Neither do people really want to pay more when it's time to do more. For some persons, they're okay with paying more, but generally, I find that people want as much control as possible over their systems when they're scaling, so that they can scale in the way that they want to, and also scale in relation to the nuances and particularity of their own business. Because remember, you know, guys, as much as we have 10 retail stores in the same industry, each one have something unique to them, right? And they want to build out. So being mindful of your different platforms is very important, you know. And I didn't drop Shopify here because I was actually gonna venture on Shopify in my e-commerce / payment platforms. But it was a very relevant and very good example that was made here in relation to content management systems as well. All right. So I hope that was very clear to the team, right? All right. So that's CMS systems. Now, next thing to consider, guys, before, again, when choosing your technologies and going online, is your online sales model. You know, what type of selling will you do? How will you sell your products? Is it that you're selling products where persons just order online and that's it? It's a very simple process. Is it a product that requires you to build a landing page, educate persons on what you're selling, and then ask them to sign up or subscribe or join a membership? Are we asking persons to book a service online, like a hair salon or a hotel? Or are we asking persons to request quotations? And persons will choose different types of sales models based on the type of business that they're in. You know, so for example, it is popular for education to use things like sign up. It's popular for online stores to use the regular ordering, right? It's popular for, as a beauty service provider to use the booking service. And it is popular for persons in the construction or in the space where an assessment has to be done before a price is provided, to use quotation-based systems, right? And there are applications specific for these needs on majority of the platforms that are out there. Yes, some do it better than others, but they exist nonetheless. So it is important to understand your sales model, because this will directly impact the type of systems that you choose to implement when setting up. The other thing that I want to drive home, guys, which a lot of persons make a lot of mistakes with, is how they structure themselves to sell online. I've made a mention before about first ensuring that we're running one business and not just running a business offline and a business online. But how is it that we structure our business to sell online? Should be how we structure it to sell offline already. And I'm going to explain to you what this means. But why I bring this up, guys, because again, how you bring this thing to fruition comes down to how you conceptualize the entire thing. And if you go back to things like your business model canvas, where we talked about the revenue model, what are different things, are different ways that we're going to earn. If we look at Kim's Beauty, for argument's sake, Kim's Beauty is selling products, is selling classes on how to use her makeup. She's selling raw materials. She's selling bookable services. And the same way how she would sell that through her storefront is the same way she wants to sell that online, right? But this uses an example of a simple restaurant. And we use a restaurant in this case just for basic simplicity purposes, because all of us have to eat and we interact with restaurants at some point in time every single day, right? Or very regularly. But similar to a restaurant where you're walking. So if you think about a simple thing as a patty shop or a fast food joint or a restaurant that prepares lunch to go, you're walking, the first thing that you're gonna see or the first thing that's of importance to you is what's the menu, what's on your menu, you know? So when you build a website, you have to make people can find the menu very easily. Like even right now, today is my wife's birthday and I was trying to find a restaurant to bring her to. And for me, the main decision factor is what's on that menu. If I can't find that menu, I'm not going, you know? So these are things to consider, and it's important to understand how you sell offline so that you can sell in the same way online. So if you look at this website example, when persons land on the restaurant, the first thing that they see is the menu, right? Then the next thing is if you're a restaurant that accept dining, then you may want to have a booking form where persons can express interest to book a table, right? Outside of that, the next thing that somebody would want to be able to do is to know information about the restaurant, you know, where it's located, opening times, you know, what type of cuisine do they sell, you know, what are different payment and pickup options, things like that are very important, right? So it's important to understand, guys, that when you're structuring your business to sell online, look at how it is functioning offline first and replicate the same thing in an online way. All right, do we have any questions on that? No? All right, let's continue. Let's get into some e-commerce and payment systems, right? And this is where, again, we come back to the conversation around choosing your platform. So we talked about the content management systems earlier, but now we're talking specifically about e-commerce based platforms. And I like to make this comparison between WordPress, Shopify, and custom platforms, because they all have their different pros and cons. And you know, these are things that you must consider. As I said, guys, the biggest mistake I've seen persons make out there is choosing the wrong platform. It's not where they register the business, it's not which payment gateway they choose to use, but which platform that they choose to use. Because at the end of the day, guys, you have to keep in mind that we are in the Caribbean, and being in the Caribbean don't afford us the luxuries of operating in first world markets like Canada, USA, UK, right? Where everything is available by and large, and you're able to do the core things that you need with almost any platform that you set up. In the Caribbean, there are major limitations with how you go to market. And what's the main difference? As we mentioned before, the Shopify allows you to get up and running in a very easy, seamless way. With paid packages, you can upgrade and access more solutions and services from Shopify. But every single time you upgrade, you have to scale, and you have limitations behind how you build out and integrate. Of course, Shopify is a growing platform and they're adding more and more integrations to the solution. But because Shopify is owned by an entity, there will be limitations to what you can do with it, right? With regards to custom development, persons believe that, you know, oftentimes they need full free reign to build out their platform how they choose to or how they need to. They want to put this button over there. They don't want to be limited by any templates. They don't want to be limited by database structure, anything like that. They want full reign over how it is that they build out their website or application. Pros and cons to that is that with custom development, you can build it however you feel like, any way you feel like. It's like you get an architect, like you have a big piece of land and you get an architect and you say, hey, I want to build my dream home and this is the way how I want to build it. I don't want anything to stop me from building it this particular way. That's the main benefit of building with custom code. The biggest drawback is, well, the biggest drawbacks are that it is very expensive because it takes a long time and requires more building resources to produce the website, right? As opposed to Shopify, who already has these templates and we're just populating the templates with the information that we need, right? So it is more expensive. It requires more skill sets, more expensive skill sets, and it takes a much longer time to go to market with a custom build versus when you do it on a Shopify or a WordPress. Also, when you start to think about your integrations, remember there was a mention about the turnkey solutions. When you're working with a Wix or a Shopify, you don't get that with custom builds. You have to be adding on every single thing, and oftentimes you have to be even building the integrations in as part of the add-on. So there's a lot of work to do just to scale the application. As I said earlier, when you build a website, you don't build a website because you just want to build a website. You build a website to market, and it's tapping into the additional integrations or the additional tools that is going to make your website work how it should. So your marketing tools, your payment tools, all the different things that are needed to make business work is what you're going to be needing to connect to that website. And if it is going to be very expensive, very cumbersome, very difficult, and take a very long time, then it becomes counterproductive. I can't tell you how many persons I've met with who have gone to India, Pakistan, Russia to build their websites by custom code developers who they believe are cheap but effective. Yet when it's time to facilitate payments, they're telling them about PayPal and Stripe and things that just don't work for them in their particular region, right? WordPress, as I said, gives you the best of both worlds. It gives you the templated approach, which allows you to start up in a fast time frame with a much smaller budget, but gives you absolutely no limit to where you can go. The reason why I prefer WordPress is because of the limitless nature of it, and also because whenever persons are building solutions, they build it for WordPress first. So you find that every single country, every single one of your businesses in the Caribbean can use WordPress and access payment gateway services from whichever payment service provider services in your country, right? So that's one of the reasons why we push persons towards WordPress, but we do understand the financial limitations because generally you would hire. I know there are persons who have watched YouTube and read books and done research online and built their own WordPress websites, but oftentimes persons would outsource something like this. So again, it comes back down to the budget that a person may have. But keep in mind, guys, that with a solution like this, you're able to scale from anywhere. So you could literally start without a full website. You could just even have like a product page. You could just even have like a storefront only, that may cost you only $500 to implement, as opposed to building out a full website for $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 US, So there are ways to go around the cost, but you have to be very mindful of being scalable. Now, when you look at e-commerce, one thing that you wanna let's remove this S. One of the things that you wanna be very mindful of is how does e-commerce work from a functionality perspective. At the end of the day, you need some type of platform to execute the sale, whether it is you're doing bookings, you're doing online ordering, you're doing sign-ups, you're doing quotations. You need a tool that registers your sales activity and display it in a way that allows you to be able to see what is happening. So for example, WordPress uses WooCommerce as its basic, its native e-commerce platform. And it is generally used to execute sales of any nature, whether you are using a booking system, which would normally be an add-on, a quotation system, which would normally be an add-on, or a subscription system, which would normally be an add-on. But the WooCommerce platform is the base product, the base system that is used by WordPress to execute the sale, to register the sales activity that happen within the system. So you could see here where from my screenshot, somebody could come here and click on add an order. So in the case of Kim's Beauty, if let's say, for instance, somebody walked into the store, did not go on the website, they could use the same platform that is being used online to actually register sales in store by simply having the admin person come here to create an order or create a purchase, right? And by simply creating the purchase, what you do is that you click add order, you choose the client who is making the purchase, you add the product to that person's account, and you check out, and upon checking out, you can choose to collect your money right there from the customer and mark the order as being completed, and right away, right then and there, you are actually using the same online platform in store to collect an order and register payment, methodologies and all these things. So this is a very important part of e-commerce and is generally the foundation on which everything is built where online selling is concerned. Shopify, of course, is its own platform on its own. So it does not necessarily come with a native e-commerce platform per se, because it in of itself is an e-commerce platform, as opposed to WordPress, which is a content management system, but uses WooCommerce as the e-commerce component to execute the sale, right? So whenever persons are building out e-commerce based platforms, we need to have, of course, your content management elements to display your products and just manage how the content is being displayed and interacted with by users and so forth. But your e-commerce system is the core of what makes you, what allows you to be able to list your products, to be able to execute the sale, to be able to see reports, to be able to manage even your customers and all those things, All right, so here we say that there are also mobile applications such as invoice, expenses, book API that works well if you aren't using a site that has been built with an in-sales management. And that is true, right? So there are other external platforms that you can use to register your sales. And for example, in my case, I use like QuickBooks Online, which is another type of tool that is a web-enabled tool that allows me to do my books and register the sale and so forth. But that is separate from my e-commerce approach, right? Which meaning that my QuickBooks activity are all manual activities. Beautiful thing about WordPress, and I think Shopify should have it by now, is that these solutions are able to integrate with your QuickBooks so you can run one operations, right? So somebody's buying online and you're selling the same inventory. You need to, if it is that you're selling 10 bars of soap, you don't want there to be a case where somebody went online and bought all 10 and you're in store selling the same 10 bars. It's going to create a lot of headache for your customer who is either buying online or offline, causes frustration, causes poor customer experience, and it's just a bad experience overall. So when you're able to integrate, and we're going to talk about running centralized operations later on, but facilitating integration between online and offline systems are very important for running one cohesive system. But when it comes to running your website as an automated system, remember guys that one of the beauties about having a website that is fully resourced is that you can go to bed and wake up in the morning with sales. And when I say sales, I don't mean just orders, but products fully paid for, money cleared in the bank, just waiting for you to package and ship out those products, right? So it has to be a system that can run on its own without any manual intervention, right? And that is why I said these systems are important to the core operations of anything that you're doing e-commerce based, right? So that's the core of the system. Now, collecting your money. A lot of times persons mention e-commerce and they only think about credit card payments. And I want to drive this home that credit card payments is just one payment method. Just like when you walk into a gas station, just like when you walk into King's Beauty, you can pay by cash. If you have a swipe machine, you can pay by credit. And maybe if you book for an advance, you can pay even by a bank transfer, right? These are three core payment methods that we generally set up with e-commerce based systems when they can be permitted. And what do I mean by this? Not every single business supports all three payment methods. You know, I have some business who cannot support cash on delivery because there is a risk of you bringing the goods to the person don't turn up, or don't show to collect the goods, and you're stuck with you've made an unnecessary trip and incurred expenses that don't make sense. There are others who can facilitate that type of thing. So persons will always use the payment methods that best suit their operations, and we want to keep in mind that within the Caribbean, although we have high internet penetration, well, higher than before internet penetration, we have very high mobile penetration. Credit card penetration is not at the same rate as in the US, where there is at least 80% persons having credit cards. Because of that, guys, we have to facilitate payment methods of other types to be able to do business in a seamless way. Some persons will say, hey, if it's not credit card, I'm not taking it, and that's fine. But you just know, say, oh, you have a even smaller pool of potential customers to go after, and persons again will choose these things for operational reasons. Recently, I had the pleasure of working with our local tourism development agency here in Jamaica to get them to move online. And because they're dealing with thousands of customers to register their tourist businesses, tourist products, hotels, whatever they are. Once you're running a tourism business here, you have to go through them. They do not have the bandwidth to check, to do the reconciliation between bank transfers. So they chose only to do credit card payments. So you're only able to do this online, to do online transactions with the payment method being credit card. Similar to the tax office here in Jamaica as well. Tax office went online recently, and you will notice the same. If you're not using a credit card, you cannot purchase from the tax office. But if you're a small store who is just breaking into the market and you want as much business as possible, as frictionless as possible, it is in your best interest to support multiple payment methods. How does this work? What happens is that when you persons have added a product to cart and they reach on the checkout page, you can present to them multiple ways of making payment to you. So similar to how somebody does see the credit card payment form waiting on them to put in the credit card information, you can actually have a checkbox where somebody can check, I want to pay using cash upon pickup. And we just not, all right, when we get this order, we're just gonna process it, package it, and wait for the customer to come and pick it up and pay via cash, right? Then you can choose to say persons can pay by a bank transfer. That person now would, upon submitting their order, will get a email instruction to go and make payments to this bank account, this number, this person, and maybe send a receipt back by email to this email as part of your proof of purchase, for argument's sake. So I am only responding after I've received this order. I'm only responding to emails or looking up for emails coming to me to say that, all right, this person has made a payment. They'll have to go online, reconcile to make sure that the person has actually made a payment, and then provide the goods or service to the customer. So you're seeing where this payment option, specifically bank transfer, does require some amount of administrative work to be done to support it. When you use credit card payments, the credit card payment is authorized at the point of sale to determine well, it can be authorized at the point of sale to determine whether or not the payment went through. There are other credit card payment methods where the authorization is not done immediately, but the sale is captured and the authorization is going on in the background within maybe the next couple of minutes of the person completing the transaction. You may notice things like this on Amazon. If you shop on Amazon and there was something wrong with your credit card, chances are sometimes you won't get an immediate error message saying that your transaction failed. It will push the transaction through because they want the process to be seamless in submitting the order. And then on the back end, the system tries to collect the payment. And if there's a failure attempt to collect the payment, then a notification come back to you and say, hey, we received your order, but we're having a challenge collecting payment. Please update your payment method, meaning your credit card information, so that it can be charged. So at this point in time, if you're low on funds, you may want to change out that credit card, or you may want to add some money to the credit card for them to try again, right? So the benefit of having credit card payment is that it completes the cycle. It requires little to no administrative work in getting it done. And you collect your money right away. So that's the benefit of credit cards. Then you have PayPal, companies like PayPal, where they do support collection of payment using credit card. But you can even use things like PayPal credits, where if you have received monies from persons on PayPal and have it on your PayPal account, then you can use those monies towards purchasing products on websites that facilitate payment via PayPal, right? So this is one other feature that a lot of persons tend to turn on, especially Caribbean persons tend to turn on when selling online. Another reason why persons tend to turn on PayPal is because of the trustworthy nature of PayPal. People feel a little bit more secure when they're doing a PayPal transaction versus when they're punching in their credit card information on a regular website. You tend to be a little bit more skeptical, especially with the nature of fraud and it being top of mind in the Caribbean. I've seen persons go as far as adding even Western Union as a payment method in their e-commerce checkout. So that if somebody's abroad and they're finding it difficult to do a wire transfer or so, then they facilitate Western Union as a payment method. And it's very similar to the bank transfer. The transaction is not completed, but a payment instruction is sent to make payment in this way, and then a reconciliation is done at the end of the process to determine whether payment was made or not, right? And then they apply accordingly to the accounts, right? So those are some payment methods or ways to collect payment that we need to be mindful of about. Now, credit card payment is, as we mentioned, the most ideal way of collecting payment. Requires little to no administrative support, and is oftentimes the way how most persons prefer to receive payments when they're doing e-commerce, right? So what are different types of credit card payment systems that you can use? You have your normal, I'm going to start at the bottom here. I'm going to start with your normal payment gateways. So this is where you go to your website checkout page, and you have already added the product to cart, and you don't need to check out and you put in your credit card information for processing. Now it's a payment gateway that actually processes your credit card information and determines whether or not transaction is successful or not. That's standard online shopping, right? And you have these fast pay solutions where it's just like a link. You click a link, you put in maybe an account number and an amount of money, and you right away, once you put in your credit card details, you've made payment to some type of service. I've seen here in Jamaica where Flow has used this type of payment system very effectively to collect quick payments for outstanding balances in a seamless way. So instead of you having to try to go into some account and find your account and make payment, you send you a text message, hi sir, you have $1,000 outstanding, please make payment here to avoid disconnection of service. Right away, you're able to just click on that, put in the amount of money, reference your account that you're making the payment towards, and that has been done. I have built something similar here in Jamaica for financial service providers who want to collect payments from customers on processing fees or even loans using credit cards, similar type of quick pay. But instead of it being a simple 1-2 step, it was actually a multi-step where, on one page you put in your account information, but what it did was it facilitated the collection of payments for multiple bills. So let's say, for instance, you had multiple loan facilities with one entity, then you would have been able to make one payment and determine what amount goes to which payment facility. So there are different types of payment systems. It's not only about adding a product to cart and checking out, but you can use these types of portals to collect payments. Similar to what I mentioned with the tourism development company, I did something similar as well, where in this case, persons were able to choose their product that they're renewing, complete the purchase, and have the transaction stored on their account so that they can go back to it and reference their transaction, and these are all different types of systems. Now, why I mention this is it's important to understand that payment gateways aren't only integrated with shopping carts in checkout process. We can have standalone payment systems, which is something that I've introduced a lot to our market here in Jamaica, whereby, all right, you have a Wix website and you're maybe selling a service, and you're not able to connect your Wix website to your local bank, but we can build a standalone WordPress system, or provide a standalone WordPress system, similar to FastPay, where let's say, for instance, let's use the example of Kim's Beauty, where Kim's Beauty is collecting payment for bookable service, right? So the person completed the booking and everything on their platform, but the only thing that Kim's Beauty doesn't have is a payment system, because she went and she chose Wix, and no bank in the Caribbean supports Wix at the moment. How does she collect payment? Using credit card. She could easily get a payment link that she's able to put under her own domain. So let's say, for instance, her website is kimsbeauty.com. Her payment link would be kimsbeauty.com/payments, right? And kimsbeauty.com sits on a Wix website, but kimsbeauty.com/payment sits on a WordPress website that is integrated with her partner bank, and she can send persons there to go and collect payments. This is an example of even how my old business, Mobile Edge, collected payments, because what we did was that we built an online a custom form where persons can put in any amount of money and put in their invoice and make a payment. And what I did was I added that link to the bottom of every single invoice for customers who wanted to choose credit card as a payment method, and what we did, we just simply reconcile. Now, we didn't have a lot of customers paying in that way, but for the very few who needed to pay that way, especially for overseas customers from Trinidad who are finding it challenging to find US currency to wire to us, they all used credit card as a payment method, and that was the way it was connected. So yes, there are challenges with different platforms, but there are ways around circumventing them. All right, so there's a question here saying, what payment methods would you recommend to business in countries like Barbados, where online payments are hard to navigate with a small business? Now, with Barbados, I've been hearing about this, I don't know if this M-Link or something that's very new. I don't know what's the state of it, but I've been hearing about that wallet service provider. But what I will say, guys, which is what I'm going to next, which is our popular payment methods, that First Atlantic Commerce is the Caribbean's oldest and most advanced payment solution for businesses. Let me repeat that. First Atlantic Commerce is the Caribbean region's oldest and most advanced payment solution for businesses. First Atlantic Commerce provides their payment gateway to majority of the banks within the region. How do you get access to First Atlantic Payment Gateway? Typically, you will go to a partnering bank in your country, and say, hey, I need to collect payments on my website and I want to leverage your First Atlantic payment gateway. The bank will kind of position their solution as their own. But what they're doing is that they're leveraging the infrastructure of First Atlantic to power the payment processing. In Jamaica, of the 5 banks that facilitate payment processing, 3 of them are powered by First Atlantic, which includes NCB, Scotiabank, and CIBC. In the Caribbean, there are companies like in the Caribbean, there are banks like Royal Caribbean. I don't remember all of them off the top of my head right now, but in my research, almost every single popular Caribbean country we have seen where First Atlantic has a presence with at least 2 to 3 banks in there. So your first bet, oftentimes, guys, when it comes to looking for a payment service provider that supports your country, is to actually look to which banks partner with First Atlantic Commerce. And if we do a quick Google search right now of you can do it right now on your screen while we're talking. Just do a quick Google search, banks in your country that that First Atlantic Commerce power, and right away you will see how many banks. I say based on my research, because we work with First Atlantic Commerce a lot, we have seen where for majority of the countries, they power at least 1 to 2 banks, up to 3 banks in those countries. Then you have newcomers we pay out of Trinidad. They have just headquartered.
1 second later, 1 second. When we go back to First Atlantic, one of the things that we have to pay attention to is because they're typically working through the banks, you have compound fees. So the bank have their fees, which goes on top of First Atlantic fees. So again, we go back to what we spoke about last week in terms of pricing your product. You have to cater for a lot of these fees that are compounded by using a solution such as First Atlantic. You don't have a choice really, because as Slayton was saying, they're probably one of the only solutions that's available throughout the region. Unlike here in the global north, I can go directly to a company like Stripe. I don't have to go through my bank to deal with those additional fees.
Right, and that's a very important plug right there, Gilbert, because I will tell you that this is what used to make it very prohibitive to small businesses. I'll still pose a bit of a challenge, because let's use the example of our NCB before COVID. Before COVID, National Commercial Bank of Jamaica used to charge $500 USD just to create the account for accessing the payment service. Then they charge something like $45 per month to maintain it, and then you're looking at a transaction fee of 4.5% per transaction for every single transaction that comes through. And then on top of that, because of the nature of the integration with First Atlantic, you must list on your application form your technical partners who will be working with First Atlantic to get the integration done, which means now that you'll have to hire a technical provider to do the integration, because you can't do it. Literally, it's above your heads. I can tell you that IT managers have passed the application forms over to us to help them to fill it out, because just the very terms that they use to sign up are not familiar to them, So you need a technical partner to engage with First, if any bank that uses First Atlantic Commerce. Actually, any local bank, any regional bank, you need a technical partner, because their testing process is generally very extensive and it takes time. Generally engaging any local, any regional bank, I've seen where the fastest I've probably gone through that process is maybe 4 to 6 weeks, right? And that is a major challenge with the state of affairs now. Before, it was a matter of who actually provides the service and how do you get access to it. But now it's a matter of how is it that I can get access in a cost-effective and time-effective manner, And whilst First Atlantic Commerce does close the gap in providing solution, there are still those challenges to overcome, the matter of cost and time to get it integrated. And because First Atlantic Commerce supports the entire region, since COVID, they have been in a backlog of processing, or rather bringing solutions into a state where you can start processing a transaction. So when you engage with companies like a First Atlantic, you go through a test phase, then they go through a staging phase, then they go through, then they turn it on for production mode, you know, and it's an extensive undertaking which requires you to engage with a technical provider. Now, the opposite stands for companies like WePay, PayPal, and Stripe. With WePay is currently partnering with banks as well within the region to provide the connectivity, but you know, WePay does come with its own WordPress plugin to allow you to connect easily. It doesn't come with the setup fees, doesn't come with monthly fees based on my recollection. But you know, you may just need to pay the banking partners fees that you need to pay to get started, because the bank always wants their money first. That's the gateway. You have to go through the banks to get access to some of these services. Now, the reason why PayPal and Stripe are on this list is because, let's start with PayPal. PayPal is the world's easiest, is the world's most accessible payment platform. You can stay from almost anywhere in the world and sign up for a PayPal account, whether or not you're able to collect the money directly into your bank after PayPal collects it from your customer. With PayPal, you're able to, in the middle of the night, sign up for the service, get the necessary credentials, plug it into your website, and start selling on the website by tomorrow, right? There are no setup fees, no banking fees to deal with, no recurring fees. The only thing you deal with are transaction fees, which start as low as 2.9% per transaction if you are doing business in the US or within any of their approved territories. Once you go beyond those territories, they consider the credit card used a foreign credit card, meaning that if, let's say, for instance, I have customers in the US who are using their US credit cards to make purchases, I would incur the same 2.9%. But if somebody from the Caribbean makes the same purchase, it's 3.9%. And both Stripe and PayPal operate in a similar manner where this is concerned, where depending on where the transaction is being originated from, is there a currency conversion happening? Sometimes another 0.5% to that. So generally, although in the US, PayPal's transaction fees start at 2.9%, in Jamaica, it's generally run about 5.4% as an average transaction fee for PayPal. But guess what? You can sign up from Jamaica. There are no banking fees, no monthly fees, just a transaction fee. It's very easy to get started with. And for businesses who are just starting out, those entrepreneurs who came up with an idea today and want to launch tomorrow, PayPal is the best solution to test with. It requires little to no investment, actually no investment, and you're able to test the waters without having to go the full 9 yards. Now, after you've collected the funds in PayPal, how do you get access to the funds is where the main drawback is. Because PayPal does not integrate directly into some of our countries' banking system, we oftentimes have to request a check from PayPal. PayPal mails the check out to us, say within 2 to 3 weeks. They process the check, but maybe it gets to us within a month's time, for argument's sake. But it's an international check within our banking system here in Jamaica. It's going to take another 30 days to clear. If I'm sitting and waiting on those monies to run my business, I'm going to end up in cash flow problems, you know. But of course, this is only if we are collecting all of our monies through PayPal. If we are collecting monies from bank transfer, from cash, then you could very well be running your business on those funds, and you know you can wait your 30 to 60 days to get access to your PayPal funds, you know, which for some people it works if the reinvestment rate is not too high, or if you're able to actually do that, then it works. Some people, what they do is that they reuse the same PayPal funds to buy back goods from their suppliers. If it's that you have suppliers in the US or other places that accept PayPal funds as payment, then persons just normally use the PayPal funds to reinvest. But PayPal is a good tool that gets us starting with little to no investments. However, one of the things to be mindful of is that because of the ease of accessing the accounts, PayPal is very strict in their regulation. There are times where they will freeze your account for different reasons. Because think about it, remember PayPal is letting everybody through the door, everybody through the door. The least indication of anything unscrupulous, PayPal will be very aggressive in either freezing, holding funds, or shutting down your account, right? So that's something to be mindful of. And oftentimes, guys, it's our own activities and the way how we deal with business that cause these things to happen to us. What do I mean by this? Somebody buy a product from you, and instead of shipping the product within the 10 days that you communicated, you take 20 days, and the customer go and complain. The customer says to PayPal that, hey, I bought this product from this person. I said that you ship it in 10 days. It's not 50 days, and I can't get my product. I don't believe that these people are doing business in a very clear way, that is healthy. And PayPal will start investigating, and if there are many reports of this nature, then they're going to shut you down, And I will tell you that it's very easy to lose your payment gateway, dependent on the provider that you sign up with, because sorry, especially Stripe and PayPal have systems that they use to monitor what is happening. It's far more advanced than the Caribbean system. When you connect with our First Atlantic is not that aggressive in shutting down persons, which is why I believe that they are preferred in the Caribbean. You're able to get away with a lot more with First Atlantic than with PayPal and Stripe. But it's definitely something to consider where PayPal is concerned, because you are able to access from anywhere in the world and able to start up very quickly with very little time. All right, so I have seen some things in the chat here. We're saying that the fees with PayPal, we pay are per transaction, which is correct. We pay service is also a bit poor. I have also experienced some challenges with WePay initially when trying to open something with them. I don't know if that has improved. End of the day, guys, with a new solution, oftentimes it does take a little bit of time to get it right, especially from a customer service perspective. But yes, I've had that experience, and I've heard other persons mention it before as well. I'm seeing here Gilbert said that for most payment solution, there's a challenge of fee. Yes, there is. Some are high. I want to also introduce here, guys, that we have to be very mindful of what we are selling when we are considering payment services, meaning that these payment services, guys, credit card payment is one of the most regulated space. You're in the financial space with a highly regulated space. Financials and telecommunications are two of the highest regulated spaces in the region, and rightfully so. So, for instance, if you are selling things that are of adult content like pornography, if you are participating in the cannabis industry, where these substances need a lot of regulatory approvals, you're gonna find that a lot of your host providers, which I should have mentioned earlier as well, your host providers will say to you, sorry, sir, we do not accommodate this type of content on our website for policy reasons, right? I guess they probably don't want their team to be checking, their servers and running into pornographic content or things that may be construed as offensive, right? So there are some service providers who do not service these categories. If you're selling guns and ammunition, they will also restrict you from there. So there are a number of, it is very important to ask or to research the prohibited substances or products or industries that the payment gateway or your host provider supports. Because these payment service providers, WePay, PayPal, First Atlantic, Stripe, are all competing for the same demographic of customers, the same profile of customers, which is low risk customers. There are payment gateways for high risk services, not listed here, right? But there are payment gateways for high risk services that can cater to adult content, guns and ammunition, marijuana, gambling and lotteries, right? So you have to be mindful of the products that you're selling and what is prohibited. What is prohibited or what is not, right? When you are considering your payment gateway infrastructure. So that's that for PayPal. Now Stripe is a very lovely service, one that I use myself, but it is not readily accessible by Caribbean nationals. Why is that so? This is because Stripe only supports about 26 different territories. But what they have been doing, that Stripe has come up with an innovative way to allow persons to become compliant so that they can access your service. So you can be a company in Barbados and you say that, boy, my local banking scene is just frustrating. I can't bother with them. So I know, you know what, I'm going to register my business in the US and I'm going to get a payment service from Stripe and I'll be up and running within 3 weeks or even 2 weeks, right? And you are able to do that. Now, once you register your business in any one of these, I think it's 26 territories, the same territories as PayPal. You see 26 territories, right? Once you register in any one of these 26 territories, you are able to access Stripe's payment gateway. Stripe is my favorite payment gateway to work with for many reasons. You can sign up online and get access to it just like PayPal once you meet the criteria. So I have actually registered a business in the US in one of these tax-free states. You know, the generally push to either Delaware or Wyoming. And in that setup, I'm able now to get access to Stripe services and many other platforms that I would not readily be able to access as a Caribbean national, right? And with that move, I am able to leverage my US presence to benefit my Caribbean business. This is something that you guys can consider as well. And Stripe is a very good tool with this concept. You have heard Gilbert mention earlier that you don't have to go through any bank, you don't have to go through anybody to set up with Stripe, right? Difference between Stripe and PayPal is that PayPal has a wallet service that collects and stores the funds on your behalf. With Stripe, you have to connect it directly to a bank account. This bank account could be a traditional bank account like Bank of America, or you could use one of those digital banks like Mercury to collect the funds on your behalf and then wire it to your country. One of the other reasons why I lean towards Stripe is because Stripe, unlike PayPal, supports Caribbean currencies. So you can list your Caribbean currency on your website store with Stripe, have persons complete the transactions in that currency. So when they see their credit card bill, they see the amount that was processed in the currency. And then when they're collecting the funds and doing the reconciliation on the back end, they convert it to US. Beautiful thing about Stripe is that Stripe is one of those payment processors where their exchange rate is extremely close to the local rate, so you don't lose much on the spread, right? So these are reasons to choose Stripe over PayPal if you can qualify for Stripe. Once you're able to set up a business in the US, I would not recommend to go through PayPal. I would recommend you go through Stripe for those reasons, because PayPal, for example, does not support JMD currency. One of the things that you must check though is that to check to see if there's any integration between your country and PayPal, because I know that Jamaica is not supported for our illicit ways. But I've heard of countries like St. Lucia. I don't remember if Antigua was a part of that as well, that do have direct integration with PayPal because their business practices are more of an upstanding nature, or for whatever profiling reasons, PayPal decided to allow these entities to be able to connect directly. There are other payment service providers like Payoneer as well, which you guys can look up as well, which is another wallet-like solution that can be integrated with platforms like Stripe and so forth, that will allow you to, route your monies back to the Caribbean in an easier way, where you can connect your bank account and so forth. Generally, as it is right now, I just do a wire transfer. I allow the monies to build up to a certain point where it makes sense. I do a wire transfer and that gets it done for me. But for different persons, they will have different tolerances behind how that works. All right, so question, so Stripe doesn't work in some places in the Caribbean. It works across the Caribbean, guys. It's just that you cannot sign up as a non US based entity, or if you're not registered within those 26 countries. So you can sign up from the Caribbean, but you will need US based credentials. So you will need to have a registered business, you need to have an EIN number, which is like a tax number for the region, for the country, and you do your connections accordingly, right? But you have to register a business in the US to be able to do something like this. A lot of persons are going that route these days. I say I have done it. I have colleagues who have done it, and it is working out for them. So it's something that you can also explore if you have the tolerance or the risk appetite for something like that. But I will say, yeah, go ahead, Gilbert.
Sorry, let me jump in here. Some of the things that before I forget, like we've been doing this for quite a while in terms of e-commerce and payment solutions. You have to be very careful, as Leighton was saying, with what you sell, with who you signed up with. Your payment solution is probably your most critical point to complete in an e-commerce process. So for us as a business, we don't have one payment gateway built into our system. We think we have like 5 or 6. Because at any point in time, as Leighton was saying, they can shut you down for whatever reason they choose to conjure up. Caribbean businesses on a whole are considered high risk. They cannot explain to me until today. And I have the privilege of being able to pick up the phone or jump in on LinkedIn and contact many of the CEOs I've dealt with. First Data, one of the most powerful persons at First Data is a Trinidadian woman. Very, very understanding, but she is being controlled by a board. And until today, no one can tell me why Caribbean businesses are high risk. We just know that, or we just don't like the fact that your business is operating in the Caribbean. That's the explanation that we get. We've been shut down by First Data. We've been shut down by Stripe. Stripe's excuse was, oh, we just got a new board who are much more conservative. Then they would want to tell you what you can and can't sell on that website at any point in time because you're beholden to them. One of the reasons First Atlantic might be one of your best bet, right? Somebody just posed a question. No, Amazon Pay also does not work for us. I think at some point in time, Amazon was looking to move into the market of Trinidad, and I'm not sure that they still do function in those 2 spaces. But you have to be very careful. If you're going to pursue getting a gateway, look at having multiple. Yeah. Look at having ones that don't have fees attached. So even if you have multiple, like we've had 5 or 6 for the last number of years, and it doesn't cost us anything extra for having them because there's no maintenance fee to having them. There's only a transaction fee, right? So you have to look into having multiple because it's a single point of failure. There are many others. There's another service that is very similar to PayPal, but it's out of Europe called Skrill. Look at them as well. Again, we're going to share most of this information with you later on. Just needed to say that.
Yeah, man. Thanks for jumping in there, Gilbert. And I want to echo that sentiment again. That guys, it's a fickle relationship between you and your payment service provider because at the end of the day, guys, it's a big risk for them. For every single customer who they onboard, and people will do unscrupulous things where they feel they can, or where they are allowed to, So they are very tight, and they have a lot of systems that monitor what is happening, the transactions that are going through, and how everything is perceived. And it is right. They do profile us as Caribbean businesses. They probably mix us up with the Africans and everybody from third world, and they just automatically put a label on our region and treat us accordingly. Very aggressive with how they shut down, freeze funds. I've had the unfortunate experience of PayPal freezing over $6,000 for me just because, and it wasn't even a matter of what I was doing, but somebody was paying me for services I provided to them, and they found an issue with the person's service, and they tracked the funds straight back through to me and freeze everything straight through the pipeline for 6 months. $6,000 now for a small business. But to freeze $6,000 for a small business, that's in Jamaica, that's almost $1 million.
For us, we had $130,000 frozen in the middle of Christmas.
US?
For absolutely, yeah, US.
Wow.
Absolutely no
Wow.
reason as just that, oh, you guys are transacting too much. It was
Wow.
crazy.
Wow. Yeah. It is. And also, guys, when you see one of the things as well that I will tell you, when you sign up for payment services, oftentimes they will ask you to estimate the value of your transactions and also the volume of transactions that you'll do per month. Put it as high as you can. It is better for it to be higher than lower because these are markers that they use to say something may not be right over here because these guys were expecting this to make 20,000 US per month. How come all of a sudden they're doing 100,000 US per month, you know? Again, my own experience here in Jamaica is very different. I bank with the NCB and I've provided payment payment facilitation services where I collect payments on behalf of customers already. And NCB has called me to ask me later what is going on here with this amount of money. This is a lot of money. Where is this coming from? And I had to provide contracts. It's a good thing I was using like a contracting tool that stored everything. I could easily just pull up some contracts and share with them, you know, what I was doing and just be very transparent. And never ever called me back since then. And you know, it's really just about how well and how easy we satisfy their concerns around the type of activities that we're doing. Because the reality, guys, is that internet fraud and unscrupulous activity is very popular within the online space, and all these guys are mainly trying to do is to protect themselves. And every company have different tolerances, have different risk profiles and appetites, and the same company who will have a very broad risk profile or appetite will change next quarter because something changed within their business and they've decided at a board level to be more conservative, you know, and these are the things that will happen. And I will tell you that when companies like Stripe shut you down, they're just going to give you a vague response. You're never ever going to be able to pinpoint what exactly did they shut you down for. But I don't even want you to, I'm of the impression that they don't even want you to know what they shut you down for so that you can go around it. You understand? So it is something to be mindful of. It is something to be mindful of. And also, this is the reason, again, guys, why working with solutions built by us for us works. And that's why First Atlantic Commerce has been working. Yes, it is more difficult to get access to. Yes, it may be a little bit more expensive as well, but once you get it, you're pretty much in. I've never heard of anybody who First Atlantic has shut down without any sensible reason, you know, but I've heard of many shut down by PayPal and Stripe, and I've had my own negative experiences with both entities before, you know. But all in all, as I mentioned, these are some of the popular payment gateways I mentioned. I didn't get into high risk payment service providers because they're a whole different ball game. They are very oftentimes specialized for a particular need or a particular industry. Their rates are normally higher. So if PayPal and Stripe are charging 2.9%, these guys are in the 5 and 6%. But that's what comes with those particular industries. You know, it's oftentimes better to have something than nothing, and that's really where they come into service that particular market. All right. So we want to quickly move on because we are almost at the 2-hour mark. Is there another question? How do I feel about Caribbean systems like M-Money? So M-Money is the one thing I heard about from Barbados. I've never interacted with it. My understanding, however, is that it is a wallet service provider at the moment, similar to how PayPal will hold your money, so you can transfer your money from one PayPal wallet to the next. All these solutions are good solutions. These things enable more digital sales activity, and these are the things that once they start happening, more and more persons become more and more comfortable with e-commerce. So for example, in Jamaica, Link is the new thing, right? It's a new app being pushed by the biggest bank in our country, and these things tend to break down barriers for persons who are skeptics about digital business and digital currencies, and you know, just doing business online. There are some persons in our countries who are still sleeping with money under their mattress, not even putting it into a bank because they don't trust money that they can't put their hand on, you know. So more and more of these types of players in this space help to educate, help to demystify what we can achieve with a cashless way of operating businesses. So, you know, for me personally, I encourage it, and I even encourage competition within my e-commerce business, because what it does again is it educates more persons on what is possible and what is not, you know. All right, so let's get into fulfillment systems. Again, it's gonna be touching over this. Gilbert will be going in depth in operations from a fulfillment perspective. But when you are setting up your e-commerce systems, again, just like how you set up your online ordering platforms, just like you set up your payment methods, you have to also set up your fulfillment methods, right? So somebody is purchasing Kim's Beauty nail polish, they can order it online and come and pick up in store. And it's similarly over on the right-hand side of the checkout page where you normally put the credit card information, and you have things like your cash or your bank transfer. There's normally a section for shipping as well, and you can determine what type of shipping arrangement you want to turn on, right? So persons can choose that, all right, I want to pick up in store, or somebody can say, I want to have the product delivered to this particular address, and you put in your shipping address, right? But if, let's say, for instance, it's a downloadable product, let's say it's a guide, it's a recipe book, it's a catalog, it's a ebook, then you can put a download link in the product, so that when the product is marked as being paid for automatically, and only then is the download link sent to the customer for them to download, right? Keep in mind as well that if you are selling digital assets, you also want to protect them by putting them in a secure environment. What do I mean by this? It could simply be just being on a page where you have to log into the website to view it. Why? Because if it is that you don't secure your asset, then it will deplete your future revenues, as in meaning that people will be sharing your product and giving persons less need to have to buy it, right? I can't tell you how many persons out there who have books and Amazon have found other persons selling their own books. Right now I have an engagement with a customer out of Florida who is doing very well. I've sold $500,000 worth of, when I say $500,000 US dollars worth of Excel templates that are used for bookkeeping. But her main priority right now is that late, and every single time when I sell it, persons get a download, they share that download with their friends and family, less opportunity to sell to those friends and family members, right? So we have to secure our digital assets when we're selling them, right? So these are the popular fulfillment systems, our fulfillment methodologies that are typically used. And typically what we do is that when we're setting up the e-commerce systems, we facilitate these things. So for example, if somebody is going to have a product delivered to Florida and it costs $20 to ship to Florida, then that $20 is added to the cost of the cart or the checkout cost, the full cost. So it's added to the product, right? If the product is being shipped to the same country and the cost is say $5, then only $5. And these determinations have to be made so that the correct pricing can be assigned accordingly. All right. That's that on fulfillment systems. And then now, as part of delivery, you have to understand your costing. Normally, fulfillment from a logistics perspective and the pricing is normally based on delivery zoning. You know, in the smaller countries where you don't have a lot of ground to cover, oftentimes you may find that the rate may be one flat fee to deliver wherever it is in the island, right? For countries that are a little bit larger, you may find that there is a rate to deliver in a particular zone, and there is another rate to deliver further out, you know. In the example of like a Jamaica, which is considered to be a large Caribbean country, you will have zones like, you know, your local, like a no delivery, where people just come and pick up. You have zoning where it's in the corporate area, like a Kingston and St. Catherine, which has at least 1/3 of the country's population being condensed in that small space. Because so many people are so close, then the delivery service provider doesn't have to go faster and normally charge a cheaper rate, as opposed to if they were to go to the other end of the island, which is like a 3-4 hour drive, right? So you still have like rural delivery, and people can You can zone in many different ways. I could also have international delivery. I could have Caribbean delivery because I have a different cost. Normally, your delivery zoning is based on the cost that you incur from whichever service provider to deliver to that area. And what you want to do is ensure that you zone and assign the cost accordingly, so that when somebody is checking out on the checkout page and they put that I live in Georgetown, Cayman, for argument's sake, it picks up that, all right, this person lives within this zone and this is the appropriate rate that they should charge. But if you say that, all right, another person lives in Kingston, Jamaica, and you're shipping from the same Cayman, then it's a different zone and the associated costs need to be applied, right? So that's the concept of delivery zoning. And one thing to keep in mind, is my last slide on systems. One thing to keep in mind, guys, is that after you build a website, there are two main activities that you will want to engage in, which is adding integrations / customizations. Meaning, all right, so I build a website now. Now I need to add on some marketing components. I need to add on a mailing list system. Maybe I need to have a pop-up to engage person when they visit my website. Maybe I need to have a remarketing tool so that after persons leave my website, we can continuously re-engage. And these are customizations that you typically want to have. And this is why platforms like your WordPress becomes very handy, or platforms like your Wix, which have your turnkey solutions, become very handy, because none of us build a website because we want a website. We build a website to sell and to promote. And it's the integrations and customizations that make the website more marketable. Customizations that oftentimes come with operational efficiencies that you want to improve. You customize this, you tweak that. And the ease to be able to do that is very important and should play a part in how you choose platforms. Other thing as well, guys, is that web platforms need to be maintained, whether by you or an external party, has to be maintained. The worst thing you want to do is go on a website with dead links that go to nowhere, outdated information. You go on for pricing, and the pricing is different from what actually happens when you go to the store. You want to be very current. So, keeping your website, just like washing your car and maintaining your car every 6 months to keep it running in a smooth and efficient manner. You want to do that. Plus, you also want to keep your content as up to date as possible. Any questions on the systems that we just touched on a while ago? Any questions? Any contributions? Anything else about payments? I know payments is always a hot topic for systems. Any other questions about payments?
I know a lot of the regional banks are coming up with their own payment solutions. Like I know in the OECS we have Dcash. Some still faulty, but they're working out the bugs. Those are systems that are going to come in place that would help easing people into the e-commerce payment solutions. I know RBTT have some payment links that could be used as well. I'm not sure. I know some of the other banks in Trinidad also have this. Anybody from Trinidad? I'm not sure about the other islands who would contribute to that. Do you guys know of any of the other payment solutions that your local banks offer?
Well, we mostly use, this is Leroy here. We mostly use First Atlantic. Are you hearing me clearly?
Yeah, we're hearing you. I am.
Okay, we mostly use First Atlantic as the payment gateway through our banks. Some businesses use WePay as well. And those are the main things. When it is, even if it is you use the banks and stuff, they use First Atlantic.
Yeah, I think First Atlantic covers RBTT.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, speaking on behalf again, I'm not sure what the banks use, but recently there has been a mobile money app, GT&T Mobile Money, that has been adopted by a lot of businesses for accepting payment. Widespread.
Okay, so you see, so one of the things to keep in mind, because mobile money is on the rise, and there's a lot of experimenting happening with mobile money. I think Digital found the great success in Haiti with the mobile money. because a great percentage of their population at the time was unbanked. One of the key things with mobile money that we'll have to understand is that mobile money is like a network where the money is circulated within a particular network. What I'm aching to see, and in something that I'm even propositioning to a local provider, is to integrate e-commerce features into this mobile money ecosystem where persons can actually collect payments on websites and have these wallet solutions for the funds, and then they can cash it out wherever they need. As it is right now, majority of the mobile money solutions are around persons sending monies between each other using like a transfer methodology, as opposed to integrating with payment solutions that allow you to get cash into the wallet. So that's something that we're hoping to see more of as the e-commerce space becomes more viable.
I just wanted to say, sorry.
Go ahead, Leah.
I just wanted to say something else. In Trinidad and Tobago, we are looking at the revamp of our Electronic Transactions Act, the regulation that governs most of these things, as well as how it is we do and accept e-payments and stuff like that. And what I have come to realize is that the more work that is being done from a regulations perspective, is the easier it becomes for businesses to do things, right? And so it is just a plug here for us as BSOs and to advocate on behalf of our businesses to really push the government in terms of updating our regulations and policies, because there are business solutions available and innovative systems that fintech companies want to put in place, but the regulatory environment does not support those solutions. And I think as soon as the regulatory environment gives a little bit more ease for it to happen, then the market will be flooded with solutions for e-commerce businesses to thrive in the Caribbean. So I think as BSOs and the organizations that we are, there is a bigger trust for us to keep on pressing the government in terms of upgrading their regulations.
The idea behind that is really, I like it, right? But the truth is, when we look at our current laws, and I don't want to jump deep into this because it gets boring after a while. A lot of the laws in the Caribbean, e-payment laws or digital laws, don't currently exist. The barrier to entry into a lot of Caribbean markets. When you think about it, if First Atlantic is able to operate within this space, why aren't they competitors? They're governed by the same laws, right? The thing is, the barrier to entry is a bit high.
Yeah, well, the cost for entry is extreme, right? Because
the cost for entry.
Yeah, I had a meeting with Visa. I said I've been a part of a lot of pioneering initiatives, and one of the things that even before COVID came, we've always been trying to look at is how do we, include more, get more local payment gateways, more things like PayPal into the Caribbean. And when we had a meeting with Visa just to understand the cost that it takes just to acquire the technology from Visa, the facilities from Visa to be able to process credit card payments for a year, you were looking at between 250,000 to 500,000 US per year just to maintain the systems that are needed and the relationships that are needed. So you find that the cost is very prohibitive, and that is why, for instance, a NCB, a Scotiabank, and a CIBC go to First Atlantic, and that's why First Atlantic works, because what they do is that they go to all these banks, they pay that 250 to 500,000 per year. They go to all these banks and they say, hey, we have a facility, help us to resell this service. You understand? And you benefit from such and such, and that's how it works. But there's a major cost component that is just prohibitive. And when you look at it, guys, I mean, Visa must be charging some percentage on transactions to separate from that large maintenance cost. So when you look at it, these banks are sometimes making $1, $2 maximum, sorry, not dollars, percent on any transaction. The amount of volume that they have to do to become profitable with such a large operational cost is extremely prohibitive, you know. So it's a lot. It's a lot that goes into why First Atlantic is where they are and so forth. But what I'm happy about is that they are where they are, and the reality is that, you know, with integrating with so many banks, it really provides that standard across the board by which we all can get online with, you know, whether it has its challenges or not. At least there is a solution that is for us and works for us, you know. And as based on my interaction with First Atlantic, Stripe, PayPal, I've never seen a First Atlantic shut down people in the way how Stripe and PayPal do it aggressively, because they're built for our region, you know. So we look for that. There's a question in the chat, Gilbert. I just want to tackle it. Can I jump into that, or you had something?
Absolutely. Go ahead, and then I'll continue after.
Okay. So there's a question that said, too many small businesses doing things like wholesale, retail, who already have to deal with high shipment costs. What kind of payment systems would I recommend? At the end of the day, guys, the payment systems are not many. And you'd have heard us echo the sentiment of the comparison between all of them and what works and what doesn't. What I would say to you is that if it is that the cost of processing the payment cannot be incurred by your business, then you are able to pass on that cost to the customer by adding a processing fee on your checkout page. What does this mean? This means that if Royal Bank or RBTT or whichever bank you bank with that uses the First Atlantic Commerce is charging you 4%, for argument's sake, for every transaction that comes through, you could choose to add a processing fee to your checkout page. You have seen this on different websites. I don't think I see this on Amazon. I see the tax, I see shipping. I don't think I see processing fees on Amazon. But I see other websites do it where they add a processing fee to the checkout cost so that the customer bears the full brunt of the processing fee. Because remember, it's the customer that is getting a convenient way to pay. I mean, you benefit from it too. The customer benefits. So you can choose, the customer, by choosing to pay by credit card, would then accept the burden of this processing fee. You could also choose to share the cost of the processing fee, where you say, all right, it cost me 4%. I'm going to charge a customer 2%, so it's split evenly, so that I don't have to bear the full brunt. Because at the end of the day, guys, when you get into millions of dollars in revenue being processed through payment gateway, that little 4% becomes a lot over time. I can tell you, it really adds up, right? So I can understand why some persons may not want to take on that cost, but you can pass it on to the customer. All right, Gilbert, back to you.
Yeah, so we go back to something that Aaron, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Aaron said earlier. It's like, you know, we and the Caribbean at a disadvantage because we are so vulnerable. And that is true to some extent, but it also gives us reasons to come up with our own solutions. I'm going to give you an example of the Indian government who was struggling in the same way, and they came up with their own payment solutions, right? So they had all of the banks, and this is a challenge again in the Caribbean, but we are making attempts towards getting better. As I said, starting off, I know of Bcash and the gold dollar, or the sand dollar, that is, where they're making attempts to open up e-commerce in a completely different way that does not have to involve someone like Visa. There's solutions outside of the United States, but consistently, it's one of the things that we do. We tend to look to the United States to solve all of our issues. I spoke about this last week, and we don't necessarily have to. Instead of using PayPal, you can use Skrill. Right? The policy changes is not necessarily policy changes within the region. The way that our banks are being handled by the United States banking system is what's causing a lot of the issues within the region. We have to continue to push our banks and our political leaders to come up with solutions that benefits us, right? We cannot sustain half of these fees. When you're looking at fees of 5%, transaction fees of 5% plus standard 25 or 36% per transaction, those are pretty high. When you pass those on to the consumers, consumers tend to back at those. So continue to push your local representative, your local leaders, your banks to come up with solutions that are going to aid us and that are going to be built to suit us in the region. So don't be dismayed. I don't want you to go back to your business thinking or advise your businesses along the line that you're going to scare them. No, there are possibilities out here. We just have to dig a little deeper. We have to come up with our own solutions. All right, Aaron, don't be scared of this at all. These are the challenges. And we in the Caribbean, we're used to challenges. These challenges are unjust, but we have to find ways around them.
All right, thanks for that, Gilbert. All right, so that has been quite a mouthful on e-commerce systems and payment solutions. Just to close out on that note, what I will say is that COVID has been a difficult period for many, with a lot of close persons suffering illnesses or even passing away. But it has definitely brought about a significant shift in digital transformation and the need for more e-commerce based services and approaches. So much so that I've seen where even here in Jamaica, there are things like the e-commerce fund, which is a $100 million fund that has been created to enable e-commerce in Jamaican businesses. And I know that as I heard Philip mention earlier about another institute, when I heard the name, I was like, well, that's good, that's positive. But that again is speaking to further digitization. At the end of the day, guys, at the end of the day, what is happening here is that Jamaica is catching up. Jamaica, the region is catching up. Caribbean region is catching up to the US because of this push that COVID instigated. And we are always behind the first world markets in technology, and it's always a sign and indicator of what is to come. And what is really happening is that a lot of these initiatives and this need is being fast-tracked at different levels and different governments. And long and short of it, guys, is that this is here to stay. This is only going to become more and more. So let's not take a daunted approach towards it or have a negative view, because there are still challenges. It will only become easier and easier as time goes by. I will tell you that we have passed our worst. At least now we have payment facilities in place that we can leverage, right? What we now need to focus on is how is it that we can leverage what exists and are available to us and build on top of that, right? So that's going to be my closing note on systems. I hope that that information that was shared was enlightening for those who may have known some of it. I hope that you have learned something new from the discourse. And as we are going through with the accelerators, I'm going to tell you guys that at the business level, as you encounter the different nuances and business setups, I'm sure we're going to have even more questions. Every single time I do trainings like this, afterwards, when people go back now and try to implement in their business, try to look at it from their situation and circumstance, there always comes a lot more questions. And that's why we take the approach that we take around how we bring across the content. All right. Now we have 30 minutes left in today's session. I would actually love to start the lead generation aspect of the lead generation module, and hopefully next week I'll finish off in the first part of the session. But let's just get into it. It's piggybacking on systems, as we will be using systems to generate leads for our customers. So as I mentioned to you guys before, that nobody builds a website just to build a website. We build a website because we want to promote and sell products to our customers and also provide good service. One of my firm beliefs is that we can use e-commerce technology to sell our products and services to customers anywhere, anytime, and also support those businesses remotely. with technology. It's something that I live by. My company does it, I do it. Even right now in my personal business, we have an office location that absolutely nobody comes to. Our office location is geared only towards providing a consistent space for staff to work in a comfortable environment that allows us to guarantee a consistent way of providing our service. All of my customers come to us through some kind of digital channel, whether it is a phone call, an email, a WhatsApp, filling out a form, and the concepts by which we have managed to attract, maintain, and grow those customers are the concepts that I teach my own clients how to do, right? And these are what we're going to be exploring as part of lead generation or digital marketing. So you will notice that there's a very strict focus. We're not talking just about digital marketing. Digital marketing is very wide and very broad. What we're talking about is how do we use these digital channels to generate leads and opportunities for our business, right? Topics under this area includes understanding the digital journey, understanding leads and qualifying leads, sales pipelining, knowing your customers, understanding campaign, communication tactics, communication channels, and managing analytics and KPIs, right? I'm just gonna jump into it right away. Now, digital customer journeys. What's a digital customer journey? A digital customer journey is the pathway to sale that a customer takes. And I like to look at it as a pathway to sale and beyond, because not only do we want customers to buy for the first time, we want them to become repeat customers. We want them to become advocates. We want them to become loyal customers over time, right? But there's a process to getting there. And we must understand that for us to market our e-commerce websites or e-commerce businesses in a way that generate results for our business, right? And this is by optimizing the customer's pathway to sale and beyond. So when I look at digital sales, this is what I look at. I look at generating the leads, I look at qualifying the leads, I look at turning that lead into a customer, turning that customer into a repeat customer, turning that repeat customer into now a brand advocate, somebody who is referring my business to others, and that person then becoming a loyal customer. Oftentimes as well, guys, we want to encourage you to approach sales and marketing from a customer lifetime value perspective. Let's not look at the value of our customers from what they spend today. Let us look at the value of the customer from how much money does this customer spend with me over the lifetime of the customer. How do we estimate lifetime value of the customer will differ from company to company. And for some companies, especially young companies, our lifetime will be continuously growing as our company grows. I'll give an example. I've been doing digital transformation since 2010, 11, and we're in 2013 now. Sorry, 2022 now. So it's fair to say that I've been doing digital transformation for the last 12 years, right? I've had customers from the very first year till now. And when I look at my customer lifetime value, I say, all right, I expect my customer to be with me for 10 years. But now I have passed those 10 years in business. So my customer lifetime value is now expanding. And now, so, all right, let's look at 15 years. You know, and all of these things are estimations because there's no real way to tell until you have research and data to act on. So maybe a 100-year-old company can better calculate what their customer lifetime value is versus a company that starts up tomorrow. But you can use research about other companies within the industry where your client's business operates to determine what's the average spend of a customer, or rather how long does a customer spend with a particular type of company in this industry, and what's the type of spend that they would normally make over this period. It is important to understand that because that number, that metric drives how much you spend to acquire each customer. if we're looking at the customer lifetime value as the initial spending, we're not going to be interested in spending more than a certain amount of monies then on marketing or on attaining each customer. So when you look at your customer lifetime value, it gives you a clearer picture of the cost benefit analysis behind your marketing activities when you spend in a particular month, right? So we want to encourage persons to look at their marketing initiatives with that in mind, because it does make a significant difference behind how you see things like your pay-per-click rate, your cost per click rate, the amount of time that you spend introducing your product to a customer. These are things that are very important to consider, right? Now, as I mentioned, this topic is about lead generation using digital marketing. So let's quickly get into what is lead generation. In marketing, lead generation is the initiation of customer interest or inquiry into products or services of a business based on Wikipedia. The Oxford definition says it's the action or process of identifying and cultivating potential customers for a business's products or services. And I much prefer the Oxford's definition of lead generation because that is exactly what lead generation is about. It's about identifying and cultivating potential customers for a business, right? And there's an art and a science, guys, behind lead generation, right? In the space of digital sales where there are no reps on the floor to engage customers, say, hi, sir, how are you doing? What are you looking for today? Do you want it in red or brown? Do you want it under $50 or do you want over $100? These conversations are not happening in this way in the digital space. And because of this, you have to be extremely targeted and clear about who you're going after, what message you're going after them with, and what the end result that you want from these leads, right? So this is why we take this approach towards educating you guys on lead generation. It's not just about throwing things at the wall and seeing and hoping it sticks, but being very calculated in how you go about getting interest into your products and services and cultivating that into them becoming customers, right? Most common types of leads are what we call cold leads, warm leads, hot leads, qualified leads, and junk leads. What are they? A cold lead is normally a prospect who, has never ever really interacted with your brand. They don't know anything about your brand, but they fit the profile of the customer that you would typically target. So let's use the example of Kim's Beauty. Kim's Beauty is targeting females within the tourist town of Montego Bay, Jamaica. Notice now, I didn't say she is targeting tourist females or female tourists, but females that are in that vicinity, right? And that is the profile. And probably their age, I think there was an age between 25 and 60 or 25 and 50, because of the styles that Kim's Beauty sell, which is trendy, styles that make women feel confident. Women would typically value those things at that particular age. And after certain times, you have enough confidence in the world, and you don't care about certain things anymore. And probably looks are feelings, the looks are not the biggest thing that you're focused on. But people are different at different stages, but that is the profile that Kim has set up for her business. So once Kim's Beauty identifies that this woman is between this age and she is in this vicinity of Montego Bay, Kingston, automatically she's a prospect, right? And sometimes we have to call them suspects because we're not sure where they lie, right? But we want to figure them out and bring them over into becoming a prospective customer. But that's a cold lead. A cold lead has never interacted, knows nothing about your business. And for cold leads, you want to see how you can engage them, share information with them, send them emails. You don't want to spend too much time on a cold lead because you don't know where their interests are at that point in time. They don't know about you, you don't know about them. You don't want to spend too much time doing that. And oftentimes, guys, when I deliver this training on lead generation, I always liken the exercise to courtship and relationships. all of us are either male or female. I don't know any of us identify with anything else in the Caribbean, but generally we're all male and female, and we would court persons to become partners, at some point in time. And when you look at the process of courtship, it requires a little bit of discovery where, there's a point in time where neither of you know each other. Then there's a time when you become aware of each other. And then you start to learn a little bit more. And, so you learn, so you become, you form tighter bonds. And, there are different activities that you undertake to grow that relationship. It's the same thing with leads, guys, right? The same thing. Right? At the end of the day of a courtship, you want the person to commit to a relationship. It's the same thing with the leads. You want them to commit to a spend. And when somebody starts to part with their monies, a business relationship has been formed, right? So when you think about the journey of a cold lead to becoming a customer, it's very similar to the process of courtship, between people forming relationships, right? So for a cold lead, I say you don't spend too much time, the high touch things like calling them, having meetings, you don't bother with that. You try to send them information, in email formats. Email is very good for marketing or sharing or educating person because it's a fairly free, I say fairly free resource because there's a cost per email really. But generally maybe you have a subscription cost to use an email marketing platform. You could use your Gmail account and just send out your emails one by one if you want, or if you send them in bulk. Maybe you're not able to personalize them, so that's a little bit different, but it's not an expensive resource. So you can use it to educate persons on what your product is, what your business is, and how it works. You can use other things like SMS as well. Persons have been using cold calling from the beginning of time, and again, I encourage persons to spend more time where the lead is warm. So things like social sharing. You saw something that you think may identify with the prospect, you share it with them, right? But it generally requires a lot of nurturing to nurture cold leads. Warm leads are leads now who would have known about your business. Maybe they have seen a video or seen an ad or interacted in one way, shape, or another, so they know about the business. Maybe they don't know a lot about what it does or how it can serve them. Of course, they fit the customer profile. So once it's a lead, it has to fit the customer profile of who you're looking for. But these persons are not as cool. It's gone through the discovery phase of finding out who you are and at least maybe what it is that you do, So for warmer leads, you tend to reach out with more friendly communication because you're not absolute strangers. Tend to offer specials to get them to consider increased consideration of your brand. And that's how you deal with warm leads. And again, you spend more time, you spend more high touch time with warmer leads than with cold leads. And you have hot leads. Hot leads now are persons who know about you. They know what you do. They may have watched a video and filled out a form. They may have called you. They may have expressed interest in knowing what your prices are, your features of your products are. And these guys are actively looking for a solution to their problem. But these hot leads now, we are far more aggressive with hot leads, and we spend as much time as possible with these hot leads to turn them into customers. You want to give hot leads as much of your resources as is possible to convert, because these are the ones who are most likely to become customers in the shortest possible time, right? But not because the lead is hot, not because they're asking about your products and they're interested and they want to know more, they want a proposal, means that they're a qualified lead. And we're going to get into qualified leads after this. The qualified lead is one who actually wants the product, and there's a process to qualify the lead, right? But once you have a qualified lead, it means that the product, the customer, the prospect, identifies that they have found a possible solution to their problem. It's possibly within their budget. It's possible at the right time that they found a solution. I want to make compelling sales arguments for them to buy now, right? For junk leads are persons who you thought may have fit your profile but doesn't, and for whatever reason you've gone through, whether it be persistently emailing them, calling them, reaching out, but it's just not working out. You want to move those persons to the junk lead and spend absolutely no unnecessary time on them. What you can do with junk leads, however, is that you can keep them in your mailing list. A junk lead can find needs for your business later on. So, you know, it can be very much worthwhile to keep them within the communication chain. You don't necessarily have to discard them all the time, but again, it depends on how you classify your junk leads, right? Qualifying leads. It is important to understand, guys, that not everybody buys the same way, or somebody landing on your website today don't mean that they're gonna buy it today. Somebody will sometimes visit the website 5 to 10 times before they even make a purchase. There are some people who will visit the website, they will browse the catalog, and they will add every single thing to the cart, and then just leave it as there. They don't buy anything as yet, right? But they have identified that, you know, you sell some nice things I want, I'm interested in it, but I'm just not ready to buy as yet, right? How do you qualify leads? To understand whether or not a lead is qualified, marketing teams normally use the band strategy. And these are the 4 things that you use to evaluate whether a lead is ready to buy or not. Now, when it comes to internet selling, there are different ways to go about it, right? If you sell service, you normally requires a little bit more touch, a little bit more explaining to do, especially if you sell a service that is either of high value or is not a straightforward service where the reader understand, you know? And then you have product sales where persons see a product in the catalog and see that they want it or they don't want it. But sometimes as well, you need to explain things to about the product. Sometimes it is that it's a health-based product that solves a particular problem, and persons need to get the necessary information to confidently buy it, you know? So there are different models and different forms of online selling that may have different processes around qualifying the leads, but generally, these are the 4 things that must be considered. For every single customer to purchase, they generally meet these 4 criteria at the same time. So the prospect has the budget to spend. If the customer has the need and no budget, then that's not a qualified lead, because they will never buy with no money. You cannot buy things without money, right? If the prospect is the decision maker, so if, let's say, for instance, I send my secretary to go out there and find a solution, and somebody's out there talking my secretary's ear off, selling her everything, and she's not the person to buy, they will still have to go through me before that purchase is completed, right? So it's important to understand if you are speaking to the decision maker or not, right? Do they have the need, right? Does the prospect have a pain that they need, that needs to be solved? That is also very important. So whether it's a pain or an opportunity, they have stuff. The people buy things because they need something, right? They need to either look good, feel good, or whatever it is, you know. People have different needs. Do they have a need that connects with the solution that you sell? And also, do they need the solution immediately or within a short time frame? When it comes to sales, guys, just like relationships, everything is all about time. You try to sell the right person at the wrong time, you will not make that sale. So for argument's sake, you will notice that there are certain products that are sold by season. You'll never see winter clothes being advertised in summer, because nobody will ever buy it. It's important to understand, guys, that these 4 things must align to make a qualified lead buy from any company, right? All right, what are the 6 stages? So one of the things to also understand is the stages in a sales pipeline, right? It's very similar to what we mentioned earlier as it relates to, you know, the lead becoming qualified and becoming a customer. But generally, these are the core 6 stages of any sales pipeline. And again, this may differ for product sales individuals who just put up a website, advertise their products, and persons buy from them. But if it is that you were supposed to bring that process offline, and typically somebody will make contact with the company. There will be some type of qualification qualification exercise going on between both the agent and the company. So the customer is qualifying the company to see whether the company provides a solution that they're looking for. The company is also qualifying the customer to see if they have the budget, time, and need for the solution. Sometimes there is a meeting of some sorts to discuss how the solution fits or not. Or sometimes, in the case of normal product sales, where it's a very simple product, a bottle of water sitting on a shelf, then you may skip this phase, right? And you may also skip the proposal phase and go straight to the close. But in the case of selling services or selling products that require persons to understand before they buy, then you would typically go through this process of contacting, qualification, having some type of meeting to have an assessment or demonstrate value. Then a proposal is sent out which details exactly how the solution will be solved within what time frame and what budget. Then there is a close to get the person to commit. And then of course, sales is never ending following up. So, whether it is the person has made the payment, have they signed the contract, have they done the necessaries that gets them through the door. You never stop following up until the entire process is closed. And as I say, guys, you could be a product, it could be have customers that are doing product sales that still have to go through this process. Because, for example, if I'm a manufacturer of castor oil, and although I'm a product seller, I may be looking for wholesalers and resellers to resell my product. Then I will have to go through this process with them. A wholesaler or a reseller will oftentimes not buy in the same way how a regular consumer does. You understand? So depending on the business model that you're enacting, whether it is a B2C or B2B model, you may have different sales strategies that you use for different types of customers. You'd have also heard us talk about last week when I talked about the type of customer relationship. Is it self-serve or is it personal service? Once you're selling in a personal service manner, these pipelines have to be activated. All right. So this is where, guys, the strategy and the systems are tying back, guys, to the modeling of the business. It's important to understand these things and how they relate to each other. Knowing your customers. For you to be able to sell to your customers, guys, you have to know them. Bottom line. In the world of lead generation and digital selling, it's all about target market segmentation. What do I mean by this? All right, so Kim's Beauty may have a target market of females within the tourist town of Montego Bay, right? Between the age of 25 and 55, for argument's sake. But we could break down this target market into segments based on the products or product categories that are being sold. So for example, for beauty services, we could say that the market segment for beauty service would be females in the tourist town of Montego Bay between the ages of 25 and 50 who need to attend an event within the next couple of days to a week and want to look good. That's a clearer definition of a market segment. And you go after that market segment with products that enable those that enable that particular need or profile. You understand? You could go further as well to say another market segment for, let's say, for instance, the makeup classes would be females between the age of 25 and 55 within the tourist town of Montego Bay who are not clear on what shades of makeup to apply to their skin. And again, you sell those persons. Why is this important, guys? Why is this important? Because when you start running your Google ads, who are you gonna target with the makeup classes? You can't be throwing stone to the wall and hope that everything sticks. You have to be very targeted in who you're going after. Because what you're gonna find is that you have $100 US in advertising budget to spend. You have to spread it amongst to promote the different products that you have. How do you target in a way that makes sense? Because it don't make no sense. You sell the woman who already know her shade of makeup classes. You're wasting advertising dollars there. It doesn't make any sense as well to sell hairstyles to somebody who just locks their hair, for argument's sake, because you know you're putting a locked hair, maybe that's gonna sit in your hair for maybe the next couple of weeks. You understand? So these are things to consider, guys, because when you look at your Google search terms, which we're going to talk about probably by next week, these are things that are going to come out of it. You know, when you're targeting on Google, you're going to say things like search terms like makeup classes, persons who can do quick hairstyles in a short time frame. And understand? So you appeal to the needs of the individuals and the problems that you're trying to solve. And the only way to do that very clearly for each product or product category that you carry is to properly segment your target market and not approach it as one whole broad market. You understand? So I hope that's very clear to you guys, right? And then as part of doing your market segmentation, you have to create a customer profiles. So you need to understand which products or services the customer is typically going to use. What are their demographics? You know, are they educated individuals at a certain level? Do they live in a particular area? What are the things that they enjoy? You know, what are the benefits that they are looking for from the product that you sell? What are the pain points that they are trying to solve? You know, these are things that you have to consider when you are looking at profiling your customers. And the biggest insight for me is what makes customers buy from you. There is always that customer insight. It sometimes ties back to your unique selling position or your value proposition that we mentioned in the business modeling unit. But you need to be very clear. Our customers need to be very clear about what makes customers buy from you. So for argument's sake, let's use my business as an example. As a technology service provider, I have come to learn that companies will not buy from me until they trust me. They trust that I provide the right value or the ideal value at a reasonable cost to them. See, because of that, I will invest any amount of money, any amount of time in demonstrating that trust to that customer, because I know that is what will drive the conversion. And I also know once I convert that customer, I am likely to have that customer for the next 10 years. You understand? So this is where, guys, understanding your customer lifetime value, how long you're typical to spend with you, and what are the key insights all tied together in helping you to determine, you know, what activities, how much time, how much resources you allocate towards acquiring these customers. And all of these considerations, guys, are considerations that you have to make as part of lead generation, right? Body drivers to be activated. Actually, you know what? I'm going to actually pause here today because we're 5 minutes to the hour, and I don't want to get too much into this element because this is very important to understand before getting into the other areas of the unit. So I don't want to rush through it. So I'm going to pause here today and leave 5 minutes for any questions, anything at all that needs to be asked, or anything that is you're unclear about. If you want to ask any questions from the previous unit that you may have forgotten to ask about earlier, feel free to ask those questions at this point in time. I know Philip also wanted to introduce something. I don't know